I'm the Senior Knowledge Management Specialist with YouthPower Learning at Making Sense International. Welcome to this great webinar. I'm very excited to have this webinar today, and we're joined by Mercy Corps, one of our grantees. So before we jump into the topic, let me just give you some quick background about YouthPower Learning. So YouthPower Learning is a 5-year USAID-funded program that focuses on positive youth development. And so what's positive youth development? It is defined by YouthPower Learning and by USAID as programs that recognize a youth's inherent rights to have assets, their ability to leverage those assets by giving them agency, the ability to contribute to positive change for themselves and their communities, and by surrounding them with an enabling environment. And I think today's webinar is an excellent example of giving youth assets and enabling them to contribute to positive change. So I'm really excited about the presentations today. So far we have, and we, that is YouthPower Learning, has awarded 10 grants under 3 different topics. The first round was about assessing, evaluating, document, and disseminating innovative work for positive, or that dealt with positive youth development and cross-sectoral youth programming, and there's several videos and reports that are available now. The second one is about advancing the evidence base for gender transformative positive youth development, and that is the one that was used to award the grant to Mercy Corps and the group that is speaking today. And then we have a third round that is about advancing the evidence base for youth civic engagement in effective peace building, or CVE and PVE. So several of these presentations have already taken place, and this is one of the presentations. So today we'll hear from the Mercy Corps, one of the grantees. The project that they have been leading is to establish and build skills and knowledge and capacity of a group of young researchers, girl researchers, who can provide research services to the broader development community, to demonstrate the capacity of adolescent girls as researchers and the impact of investing in their empowerment, and to document and share lessons around the design and measurement of the impact that adolescent girls can have in mobilizing communities to foster safer public spaces and to reduce the potential for gender-based violence. So that is the main topic, and with that I will hand it over to my colleagues at Mercy Corps, and Aya, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Can you all hear me well? Great. Okay, thank you so much for the introduction, Maria. I just want to point out that this grant was awarded to Mercy Corps, which implemented this project in partnership with ActionAid Arab Region in Jordan. And today here with me in the room is my colleague from ActionAid, Reem Uthman, who was the partner in implementing this project. Let me express, before I start talking about this project, how privileged Reem and I feel about speaking about this project for multiple reasons, but mainly after the Arabic webinar that just happened an hour ago. Listening to the girls speaking about their projects and inspiring us and talking for themselves about the experience they've been through, we both feel a bit nervous to speak on behalf of them on their experience, but we'll try our best to represent or transfer the energy that they have and the experiences they've been through. So, why girl-led research? Prior to Girl Power, Mercy Corps and Action Aid conducted discussions with adolescent girls in MENA region, which revealed the power dynamics that play a role in positioning the girls in the society. The girls in these discussions pointed out to modes of control over their lives and their bodies, starting from society's control in the streets, in schools, to parental control and internalized self-control that the girls expressed through the rhetoric of victim blaming. As expressed by one of the adolescent girls, she said, "I don't feel free in anything, even in my choice of clothing, or even in my thoughts. I feel like my thoughts are being watched by my mother and brother." This is one of the adolescent girls that was interviewed in Egypt. This is not only the fault of the society or the families or the schools, because practitioners working with adolescent girls sometimes fall into the same exact trap by imposing their preconceived ideas of what problems and how solutions for adolescent girls would look like. So girl-led research comes in trying to work on two different levels. First, it works at an individual level with the girls themselves, recognizing the girls as experts in their own lives, and works with the girls to amplify their voices and provide the spaces for them to speak for themselves rather than spoken on behalf of. And they, by that, become the producers of knowledge on issues that they're facing in everyday life. And the effects of producing knowledge is empowering, it develops a sense of agency and ownership, and builds solidarity among the girls themselves. And this, Reem and I have seen very clearly with the girls we've worked with, expressing how they feel that they're not alone in the problems they're facing, that they changed their ideas about certain things. And as one of our girl researchers from Madaba explains the situation of girls, she says that the voice of girls in our society is nearly absent. And to this quote speaks another quote from our other girl researcher who expressed her experience with Girl Power, saying that the research became ours. The feeling of ownership and the feeling of agency that the girls developed from producing that kind of knowledge, from interviewing girls at their ages, was very powerful. So this is all in theory though. What happened on ground? Let me walk you through Girl Power's project quickly and then go into detail with the different phases. And you'll notice that the phases serve three main objectives: establishing and building skills of a group of adolescent girl researchers, demonstrating the capacity of girls as researchers in the interviews that they conducted, documenting and sharing the lessons, just as we're doing right now with this webinar. So Girl Power was launched in October 2017 in Jordan. We worked in three different cities: Amman, Madaba, and Balqa. As you can see from the slides, from October till January, Girl Power worked on building capacity of researchers, developing the training guide, recruiting and training local mentors, and recruiting and training girl researchers. By the beginning of February through March, girls were ready to conduct interviews and take lead on their research. Following that, April through June, findings were documented and lessons learned were shared in multiple platforms. Now, to be more specific, Mercy Corps Girls Center developed a girl adolescent friendly training guide to girl-led research, and parallel to it, a guide for mentors. The training guide incorporated and adapted aspects of Girl Effects Guide on girl-led research from its experience in Rwanda, as well as other global practical guides on youth-led research. The training guide included guidance on qualitative research skills and incorporated different exercises to practice interviews and as interviewers and as observers and note takers. And I should also add to that the training guide was also developed and discussed with the mentors themselves. So after we trained the mentors, they gave us their feedback on the training guide and on what they feel should be changed, the language used, and we're still getting feedback actually from the mentors and the researchers on the guide to improve it for future reference. At the end of October 2017, 3 female research mentors were recruited from the local community, 1 from each of the 3 areas. The mentors all had experience in training, and the 3 mentors were recruited through ActionAid's local partners in the community. Having local mentors was essential to the success of Girl Power because they played a huge role in communicating with community-based organizations and also understanding the background of the researchers and the interviewees. For example, the mentors were able to explain and simplify the topic of research by giving examples to the girls from their own community and day-to-day experiences. And as one of our mentors commented on the training that she attended, she says that this is the first time I facilitate a training around research. I learned how to develop a research question, how to conduct research. I think this experience will allow us to dig deeper into information and problems that girls are facing. Following that, the recruitment and training of the girl researchers took place in their respective areas in January 2018. A diverse group of girls were chosen to take part of the girl research units, or as girl researchers. The girls were between the ages of 15 and 19 years old. Some of them actually turned 20 during the project. They're in-school girls, university students, and out-of-school girls. The researchers were recruited also through ActionAid's partners and CBOs. The girls' parents trusted the CBOs we worked through, and this made it easier for us to engage the girls in the project. The researchers were also from different nationalities. There were Jordanians, Palestinians, Iraqis, and Egyptian girl researchers. In each of the areas, 6 girls made a girl research unit. So we had 6 girls in each of the areas, and that made 1 girl research unit in each of the areas. Each girl research unit developed a series of open-ended interview questions to investigate the research questions they chose to explore. The general topic that they developed their question under was safety in their cities. This serves ActionAid's project Safe Cities for Women and provides an adolescent girl's approach to the topic. And more importantly, it provides the girls the space to speak for themselves on a topic that concerns them. Following the training, some different supporting meetings were conducted to practice interviewing skills with the girls and to make sure that the questions that were developed represent the girls and represent what they want to know about the topic. Also here in the slide, you can see different quotations from the girl researchers after they attended the training. So one of our researchers said that she feels that this will make her personality stronger and will allow her to speak up and raise her confidence. As another researcher mentions, what's nice about this project is that it challenges the norms of what girls do and the stigma of aib, as she said, or shame. Following that, girl researchers conducted interviews. The interviewers were recruited in different ways, either through CBOs or through the mentors, the local mentors that we worked with, or the girls themselves sometimes talked to their schoolmates, peers, and recruited the girls to come and do the interviews with them. The 18 girl researchers conducted their interviews during the months of February and March at CBOs located in their areas. And each GRU conducted the interviews over 4 different research days, scheduled according to the girls' schedules. Across all the 3 areas, 75 girls were interviewed. And as you can see from the graphs, girls from different nationalities and girls from different age groups were interviewed. And this in particular had a very positive effect on the girls' experience, because they mentioned how they got to differentiate between the problems that girls face according to their nationalities or age group. Following the interviews, a case study and a guidance note were developed to share the findings and learnings with the organizations and practitioners working with adolescent girls. And 3 in-person events, one at each of the local communities in the 3 areas, were also conducted for the girls to share their findings with community-based organizations, with the community leaders, and most importantly with their families. And more importantly than even just sharing the experience, it was a way for them to celebrate their achievement at the end of the project. Now we'll go more into the research that was done. The research done in Madaba and Amman was overseen and supervised by ActionAid. My colleague Reem will take lead on this part.
Hi, this is Reem Uthman from ActionAid. I will be presenting the research questions and findings from Madaba and Amman. So basically there was these general research questions in each location, and out of them we had more detailed research questions. For Madaba, the main research question was about the reasons behind sexual harassment in Madaba. So the questions were basically about defining harassment, the reasons behind sexual harassment, when it happens, what time sexual harassment happens. I think you can't hear us. Can you hear us well? Okay. So also about what time of the day sexual harassment happens, and then how adolescent girls react to sexual harassment, and what kind of measures they suggest so they can limit this phenomena, and how they defined a safe city. So the answers, of course, varied. Some of the answers included the types of sexual harassment. A key word was the lack of consent in the act itself. It was also another key thing was about the rejection of the girl who is being harassed. Most of the interviewees could define, only 3 out of them found it challenging to define sexual harassment. However, the definition also has been provided to interviewees after getting their answers. As for reasons behind sexual harassment, the answers varied. Some girls expressed that lack of social and legal frameworks would make it easier and more available for harassers to commit harassment. Also, religious awareness and religious commitment within the society would be a factor. The disrespect of young men and women, the attitudes and behaviors of these people, and the lack of respect to the personal space of girls and women. Also, one of the interviewees mentioned that not being afraid of any law because there isn't a law that prevents them from doing so. So when does harassment mostly happen? Some girls express that it happens in the early morning and later at night. However, some of them mentioned that there isn't a specific time for sexual harassment, indicating that it happens all of the times, regardless of the time or the circumstances. As for the reaction of girls to sexual harassment, some of them would avoid the contact with the harassers, so they could avoid troubles and maybe the social stigma. Some of the girls expressed that they would speak up, that they would face the harasser, and they might even hit the predator and also ask for help. One of the quotes that you can see here, when I am on the bus on my way to university, I don't sit on the 2 seats chair. I try to avoid these chairs and sit on my own, and that's to avoid being sexually harassed by men sitting next to them. As for the suggested solutions to sexual harassment, awareness raising was one of the points, and then employment of youth so they can have important things to get busy with. One of the girls mentioned that women should cover up so they cannot get harassed. A key point is that there should be more efforts put on laws and policies that can prevent sexual harassment. One of the quotes that you can see here, we have to employ young men and use their interests and energies, and girls' clothes should be modest, and religious awareness is the most important thing. So how do young girls define a safe city? A safe city is a city where I can go out at any time and feel space without my family. Then the adolescent girl says there is no safe city. As for Amman, the main research question was what makes you feel safe in your city? Like what elements that, if they are present, would make you feel safe in your city? The main interview questions were about the situations where girls don't feel safe in the streets of Amman, and what makes them feel safe, and how they react when they feel unsafe in public. So being alone in the streets, when the streets are narrow, when there is not enough lighting, makes girls feel unsafe in public spaces and in transportation. One of the quotes is, "My parents do not allow me to go to the public park because it is full of young men. I love going there, but there are a lot of young men." So basically, the parents would be worried about their daughters. So the adolescent girls can't enjoy their cities because it's not safe, and there aren't enough procedures to ensure the safety of public spaces for them. So what is required to make adolescent girls feel safe? Adolescent girls express that when the streets have more people, they feel more safe, or when they are accompanied by family members or other people. Some girls express that when they are with their friends, with their peers, they don't feel safe enough because they still feel that they are too young to handle such situations, so they feel safer with their families and their parents. The quote reads, "I always feel scared when I am alone, but when anyone accompanies me, even if a young child, I feel safer." And it's worth mentioning here that the presence of a male companion makes girls feel safe, even if it's a really young brother, makes them feel safer than being with their peers. So also when having more crowds in the street, open shops, when there's cops in the street, or if the design of the street itself is makes it safer for girls to move, like the size of the street and the lighting there. And also they mentioned maybe women's accessible spaces or gender responsive public spaces make them feel safer. So how do girls react when they feel unsafe? The quote reads, "I am annoyed by young men's presence. They comment on the girls when they are alone on the street. Guys try to get in our way or try to touch us." So the girls mentioned that they get sexually harassed on the street and they react in different ways. It was really interesting to see that such young girls have the confidence to talk to cops in the street about sexual harassment, although there's a lot of social stigma about speaking about being harassed, or maybe speaking up against it and facing the predator. However, young girls had the confidence to do so. They even had the confidence to talk to their family members, their parents, about what they are facing and asking for their help. Some of the girls would keep it for themselves and not discuss it with others. Some girls would also talk to principals of their schools and ask for their support and help, so they can maybe contact the police or talk to people around the school so they can make it safer for them to go from and to school. So that's basically for Amman and Madaba. And back to Aya, she will present the Balqa research findings.
Thank you, Reem. Reem, maybe we can speak a little bit more about how the research questions themselves were developed with the girls.
Yes. So, as Aya mentioned, the training was provided by the mentors and us from ActionAid and Mercy Corps to the adolescent girls. So throughout the training, many topics were covered, such as how to develop a research question, how to conduct interviews, the behavior and attitude of a researcher, and the main characteristics of a researcher, and how to make interviewees feel safe. So throughout the training, the main questions of the research were developed collectively. And then there were some reflection sessions. The trainees were reflecting on the main question to get more detailed questions that are, at the end of the day, answering the main research question. We had a couple of meetings with the researchers after the training and before the interviews, where we went through the questions, We edited them, we reviewed them, and we at the end finalized them to see what kind of questions are more direct and more helpful to cover the main research question answer.
Thank you, Reem. So as for Balqa, the research question that was developed with the girls was, how do adolescent girls define their relationship with their city after sunset? Does it change, how, and why? So the reason why the girls decided to concentrate on this research question is, so the activity we had during the training was that we asked the girls to imagine what a safe city would look like for them. And through this exercise, they drew, they arted the safe city they're imagining. And throughout our discussions on these drawings, the girls started mentioning the main problems that they face in their area. And one of the main problems that the girls kept mentioning, the girl researchers kept mentioning during the training, was how their mobility gets limited after sunset and how their life and their relationship with their city changes a lot after sunset. And that's how they came to this research question. The interview questions that the girls developed included, how does your relationship with Balqa change after sunset? And what are the changes that take place and affects your safety on the streets after sunset? I have to mention that in Balqa, it's a huge area, and the girls have done research in 3 different areas in Balqa, and with different nationalities. And for that, there was a variety of answers, but the general outcome and the general findings of the research were as follows. So the girls' relationship with their areas does change after sunset, as the girl researchers found from their interviews. Their mobility decreases, and they do feel unsafe when the sun sets. And as for the why, there are a lot of different reasons according to the nationality, according to the age group, but generally there were 3 main themes that highlighted the reason why the girls do feel that sense of unsafety after sunset. First is the city's infrastructure. So physically, there was a lack of lighting in the streets. The streets were narrow. Girls even mentioned the possibility of having wild animals on the street, so scorpions or dogs or animals that they're scared of. So that would stop them from going out after sunset. Another theme was the underlying power dynamics ruling the space and the society. So for the space, it was clear from the interviewees' answers that it is a man's space after sunset. So as one of the girl interviewees says, the street after sunset is full of boys. You do not see a girl on street after sunset. As for the society's power dynamics, the issue of racism was mentioned by the Syrian interviewees and the Egyptian interviewees and the Pakistani interviewees in Balqa. As one of the interviewees mentioned, my parents do not allow us to go out because we're not in our country. We're not entirely free. The third theme that was also coming up throughout the interviews was adolescent girls' perception of their own city. So, as this quote clearly reflects, one of the girls says, sometimes there is enough lighting and other times there isn't. If it's dark, I run. If there is lighting, I walk slowly. And when the girl researchers asked her about the reason why she runs, she answered that there is the possibility of getting raped or harassed. So this fear of the possibility of something or a danger coming up also ruled the girls' relationship with their city. This, of course, in addition to a lot of other things, the traditions and customs, the parents, what they think, but these are like the general 3 themes that were found from the girls' research. Moving next, Reem will tell us more about the lessons that we learned as organizations working on implementing such a project, and more importantly, what the girl researchers and the girl mentors learned from the project.
So, as mentioned previously, the mentors were from the local communities. It was really important to collaborate with them as they know the culture best and they have access to adolescent girls, and they know the families, so they can also, they have the trust of the families, so the adolescent girls could join such a project. We learned that we need to allocate sufficient times for the trainings and for recruiting the mentors and researchers, as well as the interviewees, so we can have a more diversified group of researchers and interviewees, so we can access more people and more people from different cultures and nationalities, which will also lead to different points of view. One of the things is that we were providing stipends for research for the mentors and the interviewees, because we know that it is for such young girls which don't have income. It makes it easier for them to be able to join the trainings and the meetings, and also it's a tool of motivation for them, so they can feel somehow that they have an income, and then it makes them feel proud about themselves and feel that they are achieving something. An important point is that we should trust the direction of the girls, the adolescent girls. Sometimes you would think that girls who are this young would not really know what always to do and how to handle things. However, we were really proud and surprised by the attitude and behavior, the thoughts and the inputs by the adolescent girls in the training, and also the interviewees themselves.
As for looking forward, so there's a lot to say here, and just to point, this project was a small project. It was a pilot. It happened with a limited amount of time, but it happened. And listening to the girls today, it just felt that yes, we did something. We learned a lot. The girls learned a lot, and that in itself is the whole point of the project that happened. But looking forward, there's a lot that still could be done. Remind me, Reem, if I forget anything, but from what the girls mentioned today in the Arabic webinar, a lot of them were very excited to see this happening again in different areas, or in their areas as well. They were hoping to do this again with different topics, to explore different topics with adolescent girls their age. Also, one of the girls was very excited to use to make use of like the information she got and the knowledge that she gained in training another cohort of girls in the future. One interesting idea was that one of the girls said that she was very affected with the stories she listened to and the stories she witnessed in a way, and hoping that she can share them with the world in different ways, either through social media or through even theater, as mentioned by one of our girl researchers. As this is for the girl researchers, do you have anything else to add, Reem? Okay. As for us, as Mercy Corps and Action Aid, we're hoping that this could be duplicated, that this effort could happen again with a wider audience of adolescent girls. We're hoping that more organizations would also implement such projects, and organizations would keep in mind girl-led research and adolescent-led research when they are preparing for a project or a new program. And the final words are for the girls, as I'm quoting them now. One of the girl researchers mentioned at the end of the project that this research was one of the best experiences in her life. And as she said, I learned so much and changed my mind about a lot of topics. As for the other quote, and this is the same quote I mentioned at the beginning, I feel that it's just very powerful, that one of the girls mentioned that the research became ours. That sense of agency and empowerment that the girls did feel when they produced knowledge and when they discussed their own topics. And as Mona Tahawi, an Egyptian feminist, mentions in her book Headscarves and Hymens, she says that the most subversive thing a woman can do is talk about her life as if it really matters. And listening to the girls today, I just feel that this project was a step in a way to amplify girls' voices, to amplify their stories, and make sure that they speak about their stories and their lives and their problems as if they really matter, because they do. And I think that's it. And we're ready to answer your questions. Okay, I can see the questions now. So for the first question, how were all the answers collected? Was this collected using paper or tablets?
So basically, the methodology was interviews, and the collection of the answers was collecting papers where the interviewees were divided into teams. Each team had two adolescent girls. One of the girls would ask the questions, interview, and then the other would take notes, and then they would switch roles every time. So it was basically, they were writing down the answers. They were also recording the interviews after taking the approval of the interviewees and their parents, their guardians. So they were going back, listening to the recording, and also typing or writing down the answers and sharing them with us.
Yes. The second question we have here is how many girl researchers you've trained and for how long? So we trained 18 girl researchers, 6 in each of the three areas. Yeah, so 6 in Madaba, 6 Amman, 6 Balqa. And for how long? So the training of the girls started in January, and then the work with them continued till now. But the training was a 3 days training and was followed up with different meetings with the girls. But as Reem mentioned, one of the lessons we learned is that, of course, more time should be allocated for the training of the girls.
So the other question says, does the training guide includes ways or guidelines for younger researchers on what to do if they face sexual harassment or other kind of harassment when they are in the field for their research work? Of course, an important part of the training was risk management, which was covered in both the training of the mentors and the adolescent girls. It wasn't basically like we didn't spoon feed them how to handle such situations. It was more about brainstorming and also to ensure the safety of the adolescent girls. We wouldn't like them to handle the situations themselves immediately, because we know that there is always a backlash if a woman or a girl speaks up against sexual harassment, and also to make sure that they're safe and not put them in danger, and be responsible enough. We always discuss with them that we will always be there with them as mentors and as staff from ActionAid and Mercy Corps, and we will work to get together with them to handle such situation. But thankfully, no similar situation happened during the research.
So and to add to this, most of the research and the interviews that the girls conducted were with adolescent girls their ages. So we worked with girls 15 to 19 years old, and the interviewees were aged 13 to 19 years old. And also I need to point out that the researchers were always accompanied but with their local mentors, and with also employees from ActionAid and Mercy Corps. So the next question asks, what did the girls say about their relationships with their parents? Did it change as a result of the research?
So the adolescent girls answered this question in the previous session, in the Arabic session, and it was impressive to see how their participation in the project, being able to interview girls and speak in front of people, help them gain self-confidence to speak with their families and their parents, to discuss matters that concern them and concern their families. It was interesting to hear that working on developing research questions and open-ended questions help them as well to have conversations with their families, to ask their families questions that would help them enrich the conversation.
So the next question is, what do you see as the main benefits of using a participatory research approach as opposed to a more typical approach? So this, I feel, we covered a little bit when we talked about girl-led research. There's a lot to say here, but obviously it's two-sided, as I mentioned earlier. It benefits the individual, the researcher that's producing the knowledge. In the process, that it's more empowering to them. It makes them feel a sense of solidarity. It allows them to speak for themselves, and it also provides more reliable information and knowledge base for us as practitioners working with adolescent girls. I hope this answered your question. Let me know if it didn't. Okay, the next question asks about the insights that came out about the use and access of public transportation.
So girls expressed that they don't have the freedom to move outside of their local areas, and especially using public transportation, and that's because of many reasons. First of all, their young age, and also their sex as girls, which means that they are more exposed to sexual harassment and danger. Also because the public transportation network itself is not very strong in their cities, making it harder even for adults to use public transportation. So they had very limited access to public transportation unless they are with their families. And some of them expressed that they wouldn't even like to use public transportation alone, as they think and they feel unsafe there.
This as well, from to speak about Balqa's area. The girls mentioned that after sunset, number one, the public transportation becomes much more limited than before sunset. So that's one of the things that affected their relationship with the city after sunset. The fact, and their mobility, the fact that the public transportation wasn't available as much. And of course, the public transportation walking from the station to their house also as well also had an effect on them.
I would like to go back to a previous question that says how many girls you have, how you select them, and who trained them, and for how long. So the part that we didn't answer from this question is that how we selected the adolescent girls. That was through the mentors who are from the local areas. The mentors were also selected through the local partners who were implementing the Safe Cities and Gender Responsive Public Services implemented by ActionAid that Aya mentioned previously. So the local partners helped us select the mentors helped us mobilize and select the adolescent girls. As for the training, the trainings were provided by ActionAid and Mercy Corps staff, as well as of the mentors in each location.
So another question we have here is, were the girls involved in the analysis and the research design? So as I mentioned earlier, we were limited with time. And this is also, again, one of the lessons we learned, is that we were hoping that we'll have more time to do actually the analysis with the girl researchers, the researchers themselves. This was done, but in a very simple way. We always had debriefing sessions with the girls after the interviews to try to discuss the findings they had and analyze it in simple ways with the girls. As for the research design, the girls developed their own research question. They developed the interviews questions with the help of their mentors. More work, I think, could be done in the future, but in simple terms, this was in a way achieved with the girls.
I would like to also add to Aya's answer that the methodology of the collection of the data was also affected by the choice of the adolescent girls, because we had different options. We had the key informant interviews, focus group discussions, and surveys. However, the adolescent girls expressed that they would like to do the key informant interviews, as we also thought that doing focus group discussions, for example, needed more time for the girls to practice and to be trained on. And as we mentioned before, one of the lessons learned is that we need to allocate more time for the training. And as we didn't have enough time, we decided, along with the adolescent, the researchers, not to use the focus group discussion methodology and just stick to the key informant interviews, as they had more time to practice.
Okay, another question is, did overall outcomes got affected by background nationality of participants? So I can speak to that from the experience in Balqa, because in Balqa girls were able to interview girls from very different nationalities. And yes, definitely the outcomes were affected by the background and nationality of the participants, because a Pakistani girl working in the farm had completely different answers than an in-school girl, an in-school Jordanian girl, for instance. Also, the problems that Syrians and Egyptians, for example, faced in the community were different completely than the problems that Jordanians faced. Of course, there were overlaps, but there were specific problems that were only specific to these nationalities. And also, when we talk about the age group, when girls talk to younger girls, their answers and their findings and the outcomes were completely different than the outcomes that they found from older adolescents, for instance. So yes, it was definitely affected. Another question we have is, what was the culture experience in terms of gender? Yeah, if you can please elaborate on the question, Danielle. So another question just came in. What is your plan moving forward in terms of their capacity building? So to be very honest, as I mentioned from the beginning, this was a pilot. We're hoping that we will be funded for a bigger project where we can work again with the girls. The plan would be, and which was mentioned by one of our researchers today as one of her ideas to move forward, was having the girl researchers train other adolescent girls on the topics that they learned in the training. So, and that for me would be like ideal if we can achieve. I don't know. Yeah.
So I think we're waiting for more questions. We have a couple of people typing. What is it? I think for expanding the work with the adolescent girls, that would be more discussed with the adolescent girls themselves. So as I mentioned, the adolescent girls themselves would like to train their peers on the same topic and also be part of the implementing the research in different areas. However, if we would like to do more and to expand more, we have to discuss more in depth with the adolescent girls, and that should be, like, personally, I think that would take place when we have at least an opportunity or a chance to expand, because we don't want them to build their expectations for more work without having a concrete plan. So we can't tell what kind of work we can do with them, because we would like to hear from them and to know what they would like to do.
Are there any other questions? I see Danielle is typing. In terms of rights and privilege giving to women. Okay, what was the cultural experience in terms of gender, in terms of rights and privilege giving to women and girls?
I would like to say one of the powerful quotes by the researchers. She said that the voice of adolescent girls in our community is absent. So yes, the girls expressed that they don't have the freedom to move, to make decisions, to even speak up, to be heard. And that was one of the important things that why we are working with adolescent girls, because it's very rare that there is work done with adolescent girls where their voices are being heard and where they have the space to express themselves and their thoughts, and that's because of their age and gender. So of course there is a lot of discrimination based on their sex and age, and some of them is that they're not allowed to leave the house, they're not allowed to enjoy the city, they're not allowed to enjoy the public spaces such as parks in their areas because it's not safe for them due to sexual harassment. Of course, they mentioned that public spaces is dominated by men and boys in their areas. So there is this imbalance of power that is leading to lack of enjoyment of the city for the adolescent girls. I hope this answers your question. Maybe if it doesn't, you can let us know. Great.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? Okay.
I think this is
maybe that's it for now. You can easily reach out to myself or to Reem, and YouthPower will be sending the recording of this webinar in addition to the report of the research findings and the guidance note and the case study. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.